Hello, good evening, everybody. Hopefully, everybody can all hear me. If I could just get a couple of messages in the chat, that would be absolutely grand. Before we get things started, we've got a little under 10 minutes now to go until the start of the Miami Grand Prix. Hopefully, we are getting some messages in the chat that everybody can hear me. Excellent stuff. Excellent. Well, my name is Alex from the channel Alex Does F1 Stuff, filling in for Ryan today for the race at Miami. Hopefully, everybody is all looking forward to it. We just have under 5,000 people watching the stream at the moment, which is absolutely mega. If you could all like the stream to help us get up in the YouTube recommendations, that would be absolutely awesome. And also subscribe to Racing Statistics for more of these watch-alongs. What are you guys looking forward to for this Miami Grand Prix? Do you think it's going to be hectic? What can we see at the start down to turn number 1, and especially that chicane as well? And no, I am not Ryan. This is going to be my first time filling in for one of the races. Usually I do a couple of the practice sessions here on the Racing Statistics channel, but it is my first time doing a race. So hopefully you guys like my commentary. We've got about 7 minutes and a bit until the race starts. I will do my very best to keep up with the comments, but as they come flying through as the race goes on, it might get a little bit hectic going on, but hopefully I'll be able to commentate on the live action when the race gets underway. So at the moment, we do have some news on the Aston Martins. Both of them are not going to be taking the start on the grid. They will be starting from the pit lane due to fuel temperature issues. So they've got to have, is for when they load the cars up with fuel before the start of the race, it's got to be a mandated set temperature by the FIA. So otherwise, different pressures, you can get different volumes of fuel in the car with different temperatures. And Aston Martin had a little bit of an issue with that. So they're both starting from the pit lane, which is a shame because they had amazing qualifyings. They had really, really good qualifyings, both of them, especially Lawrence Stroll. But we've also got Esteban Ocon starting at the back. So hopefully he can make his way through. Again, we've got the two Williams at the back. That's fairly standard at the moment, unfortunately, for this season. We've got the two Hasses, 15th and 16th, Schumacher ahead of Magnussen. Hopefully they can climb forward a little bit as they seem to have dropped off. Actually, they seem to have dropped off just a wee bit from their pace that they had at the start of the season. Then moving further into the top 10, we've got Lawrence Stroll starting P10. Well, unfortunately, he's now starting from the pit lane. We've then got Yuki Tsunoda, Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly. Then we've got Lewis Hamilton in P6, alongside Valtteri Bottas in P5, taking Alfa Romeo's best qualifying result for a good number of years. That is absolutely incredible. Then we've got the two Red Bulls of Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen in P4 and P3, but the two Ferraris lock out the front row for the first time since Monza 2019, which is, again, really, really quite cool. So there's going to be some nice strategy between the two Ferraris and the two Red Bulls. We're going to see some good split strategies between them, and it's going to be really, really good. The past couple of races, we've had it usually be two of the Red Bulls and a Ferrari, or two Ferraris and a Red Bull. So it's a bit awkward. But what's everybody expecting? If I get some comments down below, see what people are expecting for this first Miami Grand Prix, as we've just ended Martin's grid walk, which was certainly a hectic event, shall we say. That was certainly an interesting about half an hour or so of him just aimlessly wandering around, or trying his best to aimlessly wander around through the absolute thick of people. So people are wanting McLaren to score some good points. Well, hopefully they can, starting P14 and P8 for Lando Norris. Daniel Ricciardo still seemingly struggling a wee bit, which is a bit of a shame for Daniel Ricciardo. You'd have thought he could have potentially started off on the right foot this year, but I think points are on the board. Maybe double points for McLaren, as long as they don't get caught up in some of the midfield action that could go on, especially going through that tight chicane of 14 to 16 complex. It's going to be a tight squeeze, especially with all of these cars pounding around for the first time as well. As we've got the F1 intro. F1 intro is playing right now. It is almost time for lights out for the formation lap in just a couple of minutes' time. Now, I just want to let you guys know as well that I'm currently watching the Sky stream on my Now TV player. So if it is a little bit delayed to what pops up elsewhere, I do apologize for that, but that's what I'll be reacting to is the Now TV stream from Sky, as we are now listening to no, not Martin Brundle, David Croft. I got them backwards. They got backwards. It is Miami. It is not raining, unfortunately. I thought it was going to rain, potentially. I think there's a 40% chance of rain, which could be quite interesting. It's also quite a lot of corners at this circuit with one large back straight. Large back straight. 57 laps around this Miami International Autodrome circuit, which is technically classified as a street circuit because it's not it's not a permanent circuit, if that makes any sense. It doesn't really use any roads, but it's no longer a permanent circuit, so it gets classified as a street circuit, which is quite interesting. With top speeds of 320 kilometers an hour, however, I think that's been beaten in qualifying. I think we got up to about 337 with Sergio Perez. And yes, we have 17 turns around this circuit, with Perez being strongest in sector 3, but then we've got Mercedes actually quite decent in some of the sectors, but not too many. And then we've got Red Bull and Ferrari extremely close together. So we've got a comment here saying the weather is very active today around the course. We're going to have to keep an eye on the radar. See, that's the best kind of rain conditions, where it doesn't start wet. It gets wet during the race when we start dry and then it rains. That is really good. But going over the starting grid, we've got Esteban Ocon in P20 after his crash in FP3. Then we've got Nicholas Latifi, Alex Albon, and Guan Yu Zhou in P17. Hopefully he can climb forward, as we know that Alfa Romeo has got some pace with Bottas in P5. Then come the two Haas cars, Magnussen and Schumacher, P16, P15. Then we've got Daniel Ricciardo in P14, who would have been alongside Sebastian Vettel, but he starts in the pits. Then we've got George Russell, P12, and Fernando Alonso, P11. Then comes Lawrence Stroll, again starting in the pit lane, like Sebastian Vettel. Then we've got Yuki Tsunoda, Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri. Both AlphaTauris in the top 10, with Hamilton behind Bottas. Hamilton behind Bottas once again. Then we've got the two Red Bulls, Perez just behind Max Verstappen, and then locking out the front row is the two Ferraris, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc on pole. The championship leader, actually, a couple of points ahead, well, actually quite a few points ahead of Max Verstappen at the minute. But yeah, unfortunately, both Aston Martins will be starting from the pit lane. It is a big shame seeing that Lance Stroll actually got in to Q3 in his Aston Martin, which hasn't been the nicest of cars to drive, unfortunately, this year. But it's a big shame for both of them that they'll be starting from the pit lane. Again, no one will be filling those spaces, so it will still be Tsunoda, then an empty space in P10, and then Fernando Alonso in P11. They're not all going to shuffle up one position to fill those spaces. They'll just keep those spaces empty, like when we had Monaco last year in 2021, when Leclerc crashed in FP3, I think it was, took pole position. Or no, he actually crashed in qualifying, didn't he? And then they left pole position empty, and Verstappen started from second, but with nobody in front of him. Oh, here we go, lowering the cars down as we are on board with Lewis Hamilton. What can he do from P6 in his Mercedes? The Mercedes, which doesn't appear to be bouncing as much. Doesn't appear to be as bouncing as much. But again, not really many cars have bounced at all at this circuit, which has been quite interesting to note. Whether it's just a low downforce circuit, so you're not really building up the downforce to get the bouncing, it's an interesting one. As the tyre blankets come off of everybody, a couple of cars get pushed backwards and the mechanics run to the side of the circuit. Imagine having to run all the way back down the pit lane in all your mechanics overalls when the cars start the formation lap, which is almost now. It's still one light on, and there we go. Formation lap is underway. Leclerc gets away from Carlos Sainz. They've had a fairly even start, but it's a bit difficult to tell who gets good starts and bad starts from the formation lap. But now we watch all of the mechanics run across the track, and they've now got to go back to their garages, which is definitely going to be a bit awkward. But definitely a massive shame that we're missing the two Aston Martins. Damn, that's going to be a bit annoying. But hopefully it is all it's all going to be kosher. Is that the word I'm looking for? It's all going to be calm and steady for this lap one. I don't really want too much action. Racing action, fine. Crashes and incidents, I really don't really want to see that, to be honest. So we've also got the C2, 3, and 4 compound of tyres, the middle selection of Pirelli compounds to this circuit. So I'm not sure about tyre degradation, to be honest, as all of the long runs that people had in practice were massively interrupted by all of the red flags that we kept on getting. It was crazy. We had so many red flags in practice that there wasn't too many race runs that were getting in. Sorry, I lost my words there a little bit. Will we be showing the race? No, we will not be showing the race. This is a live watch along, so I'll be commentating on whenever the race starts in just a couple moments' time. They're halfway around the formation lap, so I'll be commentating on that as well as doing my best to answer your guys' questions at the moment. So both Aston Martins are starting from the pit lane due to a fuel temperature issue. They couldn't quite load it in at the correct temperature or something along those lines, is what Ted Kravitz was saying a little bit ago. When is it starting? Very, very soon. We're halfway around the formation lap at the moment. Oh, people saying that Sainz is going to crash again. Really? I mean, he had his accident already. He had his accident in practice. I wouldn't want to see him crash again, but as they start slowing down towards the final corner, as Leclerc leads them through sector 3 and onto the main straight, the race is about to get underway. So do apologise if I am a little bit late to the commentary for what's actually going on. My Sky stream might be a couple of seconds delayed to what is actually live, but here we go. People lining up on the grids. Let's see if I've got another couple of questions to go through here. How is the weather? Currently dry. The weather is dry at the moment, but there is a chance of rain, about 30 to 40%. It's something that they're going to have to keep an eye on. So I am hoping that it does rain, because that would be so, so cool. As we are looking at the two Aston Martins in the pit lane. When is the race starting? Very, very soon. We've got half of the grid set in place at the moment, with the other half just coming around the final corner to line up in their spaces. Is the track map not working? I believe it will once we get underway, which is in just a moment time. We have Esteban Ocon lining up in P20. The green flag is being waved. The medical car is lining up at the back of the grid. 4 lights. 5, and lights out and away we go. It is a very good start from Charles Leclerc. Not too good of a start from Carlos Sainz, as Max Verstappen actually gets alongside, down into turn 1. Verstappen round the outside of Carlos Sainz, gets the inside for turn number 3. Verstappen is ahead of Carlos Sainz. We've then got Sergio Perez in P4 behind Sainz. Then we've got the Alfa Romeo. Hamilton has dropped massively back. He is now behind Pierre Gasly. He's behind Fernando Alonso. Then we get Lando Norris as well. Well, there's a whole mix of cars. We've got the Haas moving upwards as well. Absolutely good start. Good start from Charles Leclerc. Bad start from Carlos Sainz and also Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton getting bogged down massively, but a very, very sensible start from everybody down into turn 1. But hopefully we get it all nice and clean through lap 1, through the tight, twisty sections of 14, 15 and 16, that tight chicane. Oh, here we go. Some action. It's really difficult to tell which drivers are which at the moment, but it is very clean racing as we go round a hairpin. I should know the turn numbers. This is embarrassing. I do not know them. As we go through the chicane section, is anyone going to crash? I hope not. But we've got Leclerc leading by quite comfortably from Max Verstappen. So it's the two Ferraris. Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Perez, Valtteri Bottas still P5. Then Pierre Gasly P6. Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, and Yuki Tsunoda completing the top 10. Ricciardo has moved up a couple of places. He's P11. The two Hasses have moved forward. Schumacher and Magnussen, P12 and 13. Then Zhou, Russell, he's gone backwards as well. Both Mercedes having poor starts. Kevin Magnussen, he is in P13. Then we've got the two Williams having moved forward a little bit. Then Esteban Ocon, and then the two Aston Martins after starting in the pit lane. But yes, we have completed lap number 1. And there have been no incidents, but George Russell going backwards still. Oh no, he's down in P15. Both Mercedes got away really, really poorly. We're going to have to wait for some replays, but an incident-free lap 1. Very, very good stuff. Very, very good stuff. Let's have a look at some of these questions as we've got a brief period of silence in the race at the moment as not much is going on. Kevin Magnussen, where is Kevin Magnussen down in P13? The race has indeed begun halfway through lap 2. We've got Leclerc leading from Max Verstappen, who got a brilliant start over Carlos Sainz, or it was Carlos Sainz getting a poor start. Then we've got Sergio Perez still P4, Valtteri Bottas still P5. Then Gasly and Alonso. Alonso had a flying start. He's up 4 positions, up to P7, ahead of Lewis Hamilton, as Schumacher just gets ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, up to P11 now for the Haas driver. Can he score his first points? What has happened to the Aston Martins? They both started from the pit lane due to fuel temperature issues at the start of the race, or before the start of the race, or even before the formation lap. So they both had to start from the pit lane. Apparently hard tyres for George Russell. That is true. George Russell is on the hards. Everybody is on the mediums, apart from George Russell, Esteban Ocon, Latifi, and the 2 Aston Martins. So that certainly would have played a role in the slow getaway for George Russell in the Mercedes, who is down in P15. As we get a fastest lap from Charles Leclerc, a 134.389, but expect that to tumble as we go into the race. DRS is actually enabled. We are on lap number 3. DRS is out. How is Hamilton doing? Hamilton down in P8 after a small bad start, actually. A bad start from Lewis Hamilton, down in P8, with Gasly and Alonso actually getting ahead. DRS is active. We are on lap 3 at the moment. Latifi, he is down in P18. Latifi down in P18. On board with Lewis Hamilton now as he tries to get past his old nemesis, Fernando Alonso. Old teammates, Alonso and Hamilton, the old guns, as Hamilton breezes past with the use of DRS down that back straight. Hamilton now up to P7 for the Mercedes as he tries to claw back some of that ground that he'd lost, with Leclerc already 1.1 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen, well outside of that DRS range. And then Verstappen himself outside of the DRS range of Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz outside of the DRS range of Sergio Perez as well. So it's definitely spreading out between the top 4. We've got Ferrari, Red Bull, and then there's a bit of a gap down to Valtteri Bottas, who is battling with Pierre Gasly for P5. Okay, after a manic couple of laps there, we've just got a couple of people racing alongside each other. Who is that? That's one of the McLarens battling with an Alfa Romeo. That was Lando Norris and Guan Yu Zhou going side by side there. How is McLaren doing? McLaren is currently doing well. They are solid. Norris has moved backwards just 1 position. He is down in P9, but Ricciardo has moved forward a position. So we're doing well. We're doing well for McLaren at the moment. Alonso, people are calling for an Alonso podium. Interesting. I mean, he could do it. He has just been overtaken by Lewis Hamilton, but he has moved up 3 positions from where he started. Replay of the start. Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz actually got a fairly decent start. It's just Verstappen was on the outside of turn 1 and just able to carry much more speed. Very similar to Mexico of 2021, where he just carries the speed round. As we get on board with Lewis Hamilton, who again has a very good start, but is he just going to get boxed out? Yes. Oh, he has to take avoiding action for the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, and that's where he loses out. So and a big tank slapper. Oh, he actually got hit. Nope, he may have been tapped lightly from behind, actually, Lewis Hamilton. There was a small jink on his onboard, as we're on board now with Fernando Alonso. As he goes round, does Alonso actually hit Hamilton? Alonso hits Hamilton. Just front right, it's just wheel face contact there for the 2 of them. No real damage at all, but definitely contact between Alonso and Hamilton. Contact between Alonso and Hamilton. Interesting. Where is George Russell? George Russell is down in P15, having started on the hards, getting a poor getaway on the harder compound of tyre compared to everybody else around him who was on the mediums. But contact at the start at turn number 3 between Alonso and Hamilton, but nothing major. There is no significant damage at all on either driver's car at the moment. But we've still got Leclerc leading from Max Verstappen, 1.4 seconds. The gap now, then 3.6 back to Carlos Sainz, 4.7 back to Sergio Perez, and then a bit of a gap down to Valtteri Bottas, 7.5 seconds. So it's going to be interesting to see where the pit stop margins are going to pop up. I think it's around 22 seconds at the minute for a pit stop. So it's going to be interesting to see where they can slot in. Let's go through some of these questions that people have got in, as I'm sure there is an awful lot. How is Valtteri Bottas doing? He is P5. He is doing very well at the moment, holding that P5 that he started. Why is Aston Martin last? They both had to start from the pit lane. Both Aston Martins had to start from the pit lane due to a fuel temperature issue when fueling their cars before the formation lap. Leclerc may spin. Someone is saying Leclerc may spin. He is definitely driving hard at the moment. He is driving very hard. But we've got Lewis Hamilton chasing down Pierre Gasly, much like he was in Imola. Hopefully he can get past and not be stuck behind like he was for pretty much the whole race in Imola. Oh, where's Kimi Raikkonen? Where is Raikkonen? Imagine if we had Raikkonen lying in the marina. As onto the main straight, we've got Hamilton darting to the inside of Pierre Gasly, down into turn one. Ahead goes Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is through on Pierre Gasly. He's now chasing down Valtteri Bottas back into P6 from where he started after the first couple of laps. Perez-Sainz gap. The Perez-Sainz gap is just over a second. Sainz is about 1.1, 9/10. It's fluctuating. It's definitely fluctuating around at the moment. But Sainz has around a second advantage over Sergio Perez. Why is George so low? He started on the hard compound of tyre and he just got a slow getaway compared to everybody else on the mediums around him at the moment. And yes, it is a 57-lap Grand Prix. We're on lap number 6 at the moment. On board with, who is this? Fernando Alonso chasing down Pierre Gasly for P7 in the Alpine. As we've got Mick Schumacher moving up into the points. Mick Schumacher gets past Yuki Tsunoda into the points. Mick Schumacher up into P10. Can he hold that position to actually score some points for the first time in his career? Lewis is not seeing any more AlphaTauris. No, he is not. He got through just a little moment ago. Nice move from Mick Schumacher down into turn 1s, 2, and also 3 as well. Oh, Gasly having a little look at Lewis there, as there's quite a big gap. There's a 3-second gap now between Bottas and Hamilton. He's causing a wee bit of a train as Lewis Hamilton, actually, with Gasly and Alonso directly behind. He could be under threat here, under DRS. But Gasly is going to have to both attack and defend. He is between two of the most experienced drivers on the grid at the moment. So yeah, currently we've got Leclerc P1, 1.4 seconds. That's a steady gap at the moment to Max Verstappen in P2. Then we've got Carlos Sainz 3 seconds back. Then that's 3 seconds back from Max Verstappen. So a bit of a gap between the top 2 and Carlos Sainz. Then 1.1 back is Sergio Perez from Sainz. Then we've got Valtteri Bottas, 5 seconds off the top 4. Then Lewis Hamilton, 3 seconds off his former teammate, holding up a little bit of a gap between Gasly and Alonso. Then we've got Norris and Schumacher completing the top 10. How many laps? There are 57. 57 laps overall. Where are the DRS zones? The DRS zones are on the long main straight, exiting, I'm not quite sure which turn it is, but heading down towards turn 17 and the end of sector 3, and then also on the main finish straight. No, Guan Yu Zhou! No, Zhou is retiring! I didn't catch that. I didn't catch what was wrong with Zhou. Zhou is having to retire. Our first retirement. It was a mechanical because he came into the pits. I'm not 100% sure what happened to Zhou. So people asking, I'm not 100% sure, but I will try my best to find out. But Zhou is having to retire. It was not a crash. It was a mechanical issue. As Hamilton locks up. Hamilton locks up. We're on board with Pierre Gasly at the moment, coming through sector 3 onto the main straight. Can Gasly actually run down? That's an interesting piece of team radio to Max Verstappen from GP. They can potentially see some damage on Leclerc's front wing. I'm not sure where he'd have got that from. That's a really interesting piece of team radio that they can potentially see some damage on Leclerc. What is Zhou doing? I don't know what happened to Zhou. He unfortunately retired. It was a mechanical retirement. He had to come into the pits and he was pulled into the garage. So I'm not 100% sure what happened to Guan Yu Zhou, unfortunately. So we are currently on lap 8 of 57 at the moment in a fairly incident-free race. I was expecting a little bit more from this first Grand Prix, to be honest, especially going through that tight, twisty chicane section, as we've got Verstappen within DRS range of Charles Leclerc, 8.5 tenths between the two drivers. Down the main back straight, we've got Max Verstappen, DRS wide open, hunting down his title rival, Charles Leclerc. Can he actually get the pass into the first corner? Here we come into sector 3, the tight stadium section here. Oh, he is so close. 2.5 tenths between the two drivers. Is Max Verstappen going to be able to do it? Down onto the inside, Max Verstappen is... Ooh! Max Verstappen is through. Oh, Leclerc almost had a little look back. Not quite. Not quite. Okay, Max Verstappen is through. Max Verstappen takes the lead of the Miami Grand Prix ahead of Charles Leclerc, who actually looked comfortable with a 1.4 second advantage, but that was shattered as Verstappen now leads by half a second over the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc at the moment. Awesome stuff. Right, let's have a look at some of these questions from you guys as we just have another replay of that move. DRS on the main straight to the inside of Charles Leclerc into turn 1. Easy pickings for Max Verstappen there. Easy pickings. Alonso versus Gasly. Where is Alonso versus Gasly? Currently 6.5 tenths between the two, Gasly and Alonso, P7 and P8, as we've got Leclerc having a small little look at Max Verstappen, but nothing too major. Still 6.5 tenths between the two of them, but it could still continue. They could still chop and change positions. They could still chop and change. Has Aston Martin, well, what is Aston Martin up to post-start? So currently Aston Martin are P18 and P19, having started on the hard compound of tyre from the pit lane due to their fuel temperature issues in loading the fuel or loading the car with fuel before the start of the race. As we come through Sector 3, we've got Leclerc within DRS range, but I don't think he's close enough to make a challenge down into Turn 1. It may look like the Red Bull's got the stronger race pace. I think the Red Bull might just have stronger race pace here. If Leclerc could have held off just that couple laps longer towards the pit window, which is in around 10-15 laps time or so to get off of these mediums, that could have made the race a bit more interesting. So it's possible that Verstappen might just drive off into the distance. People thinking Bottas podium. I mean, it could be on the cards. Valtteri Bottas podium. He is a very solid P5 at the moment. I'd say a very lonely P5 for Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo. He's 4 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton. That gap is actually increasing over time. It was around 2 seconds, but it's now up to 4. But he is 6.5 seconds back from Sergio Perez. So something is going to happen to the two drivers ahead of Valtteri Bottas to get a podium. I don't think he's going to be able to get it on pace, unfortunately, as he is 6.5 seconds back from Sergio Perez in P4. So let's have a look back through some of these questions if we have any comments whatsoever. Hope Bottas can beat Hamilton tonight. Well, he certainly is doing that right now. 4 seconds is the gap between the two former teammates. Valtteri Bottas ahead of Lewis Hamilton. People accusing the Red Bulls of cheating. I feel we get cheating accusations happen left, right and centre at every single Grand Prix for every single team. How is Max's pace? Very solid. 1.2 seconds the gap between the two drivers at the top. Max Verstappen leading from Charles Leclerc after a fairly easy breezy pass down into turn 1 as on board, or actually no, replay, sorry, from Daniel Ricciardo getting past Pierre Gasly for P12. The McLaren passing the AlphaTauri for P12 there as he now hunts down Kevin Magnussen, who is in P11, 3.5 seconds between them, with Mick Schumacher still holding on to P10. Mick Schumacher still in the points in P10. Is he closing in on Lando Norris? Not quite. It's around 2 seconds, the gap between them. It's sort of gone up a little bit from the 1.5 seconds that it has been just recently, but he's holding on to P10 quite nicely. Oh, okay. Sainz is being told to extend the stint. Steins? Oh no. Sainz is being told to extend his stint as much as possible. That's a bit of a tongue twister. I challenge you guys to try and say that. Is it going to be a one-stop? I would think so. It's definitely looking like that. So the medium compound of tyres can do roughly 20 or so laps. So another 10 laps or so on these mediums, and then people will start to come in. Again, Sainz might be pushing this to around lap 25 mark, potentially. And then I'd imagine the hards are going to do the whole rest of the distance. So what is the most common pit strategy the teams are going to choose? Probably a one-stop. So a lot of actually 5 drivers have started on the hard compound of tyres. That is Russell, Ocon, Latifi, Stroll, and Vettel, but they are all P14 or lower. So they're definitely doing a one-stop. It could be a two-stop strategy potentially for some of the people in the midfield. So medium, medium, soft might be a strategy, but that would be a very contra strategy, I feel. How many laps are there at the total? And what has happened to Zhou? So there are 57 laps total. We are currently on lap number 12, and Zhou has unfortunately had a mechanical issue, as we've got our first pit stop from Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda coming into the pits to take off his medium compound of tyres. But yes, Guan Yu Zhou has had a mechanical issue. I'm not 100% sure what it was, but he had to come into the pits and retire into the garage. Magnussen and Schumacher, where are they up to? So P10 for Kevin Magnussen. P10 for Kevin Magnussen. I didn't see that change. That's a shame. So Kevin Magnussen is now P10 and Mick Schumacher is now P11. Schumacher was running in the points for a good couple of laps there, but they have had a switch of positions. 2.2 seconds now between Lando Norris and Kevin Magnussen. What has happened to Leclerc's damaged car? Honestly, not too sure. So it was a message to Max Verstappen from GP that they can see. Oh, Leclerc, no, that's not how you want to be taking that corner. That's massively wide for Leclerc. Oh, blimey, the gap's now 2.8 seconds between them. Okie dokie. Leclerc just went massively wide down towards turn 17 in the final sector. Big outside lockup, actually, for Charles Leclerc on those mediums. Big lockup for Leclerc there. But we haven't seen a close-up of the damage. So I'm not sure what the damage is, but apparently there is damage to Leclerc's front wing. So I'm not sure where he picked it up, whether it was going over a curb. I'm not too sure. Lots of people saying, when is Latifi going to crash? Who knows? I hope he's not the first person to crash, because that's not really going to add much to his reputation currently. As George Russell gets above... Oh no, we've got Magnussen coming into the pits. That is how George Russell got ahead of Kevin Magnussen. Kevin Magnussen into the pits for the Haas, off of his medium compound of tyre and onto the hards. Lap 13. I think that's a bit of a long stint. I think that's a bit long to do 44 laps. Do 44 laps on the hards. Is that doable? I'm not sure. Verstappen saying his tyres feel all right. His tyres feel all right. Definitely the opposite team radio to what we'd have heard from Lewis Hamilton if he was leading, that his tyres are gone. Checo is catching Sainz. Is Checo catching Sainz? 1.5 seconds the gap. That has come down a wee bit. That's definitely come down a wee bit. It was around 10 seconds, or 10 seconds, 2 seconds is what I meant to say. How many laps of this Grand Prix? There are 57. 57 laps of this Miami circuit. We are on lap 14 currently. On lap 14. How is McLaren looking? Where are McLaren currently? Ricciardo has made good positions. He is up to P11 currently, with Lando Norris in P9. As we're currently on board with Pierre Gasly looking backwards at Fernando Alonso, as they are battling quite hard for P7 now, with Alonso behind Gasly. AlphaTauri versus Alpine. Who is going to come out on top of this one? The Alpine is looking a bit squirrely in Fernando Alonso's hands, coming out of turn 3 and 4 through the fast complex of Sector 1 heading into Sector 2. It's going to be an interesting battle, that one. Well, I would say we've definitely entered a bit of a lull in this Grand Prix, a little bit of a lull at the moment. So the gap between Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton is around 6-7 seconds. It's quite a big gap. Hamilton has definitely dropped off of Valtteri Bottas. There is quite a gap between the two drivers. Oh, never mind. Sorry, it is now 2 seconds. 2 seconds. I apologize for that. 2 seconds between Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton, but 10 seconds between Bottas and Perez, as we are still on board with this battle between Alonso and Pierre Gasly, as it's the only real close battle that we've got at the moment. It's the only battle in a tenth within DRS range of everybody. As we've got a couple more pit stops at the moment, we've got Nicholas Latifi, who has just come into the pits to come off of his medium compound onto the hards. Ooh, okay, that's interesting. So Plan D for Delta for Charles Leclerc. Plan D for Delta. And then he'll go on to the hards as expected. That's interesting. When do I expect Verstappen will pit? Not first. I don't think he's going to pit first. It's going to be Leclerc or Sainz, but his race is Leclerc. There's a 2.7-second gap between the two of them, and I'm not sure whether the undercut or the overcut is very good here. The porpoising there with the helmet cam of Leclerc. Blimey. That just looked uncomfortable. But I would expect Verstappen and Leclerc to come in within the next 5 to 6 laps or so, as the mediums can't really do too much further than 20 or so laps. Bottas has to be enjoying this at the moment. He really must be. So Hamilton is definitely closing in that gap. It's now 1.8, 1.9 now at the moment. It was a little over 2 seconds not too long ago, but there is definitely a big gap between him and Perez of 12 seconds. All people saying that is Max's car actually going to blow up today? Oh, I hope not. That would be heartbreaking. That would be absolutely heartbreaking. But 3.3 seconds is the gap between Verstappen and Leclerc. Another fastest lap from Max Verstappen. Update on Mick Schumacher. They've both just come into the pits. Oh, Schumacher spin. Apparently people are saying in the comments. Schumacher spin. Okay, I will keep an eye out for that. I haven't actually seen that yet, but I have a couple of bits from there. We'll see if that was actually true or not. But both Hasses are down at P17 and P18 after presumably taking some pit stops, as they're now on the hard compound at the moment. But Russell up to P10. A lot of those positions have been gained from people coming into the pits, though. A lot of positions have been gained by going into the pits. Oh, slow stop for Alonso. 5.7 seconds. A 5.7-second stop for Alonso. That's going to have ruined his battle with Pierre Gasly there. Oh, no. That was such a slow stop from Alonso as he just gets out in front of the Aston Martins. Oh, is Lawrence Stroll going to get past Fernando Alonso? Not quite. Alonso is ahead of the Aston Martins, but that was such a slow stop. 5.4 seconds. I think that's just about ruined his chances with a good battle of Pierre Gasly there. Albon for points again is what people are saying here in the comments. Albon for points. Really, do we think Albon is going to get some points as we're getting Lance Stroll on Fernando Alonso, as we've got Sebastian Vettel on a Williams as well? Which Williams is this? Oh, blimey, that's really close. Oh, round the outside for Sebastian Vettel. Not quite. Against Sebastian Vettel and Nicholas Latifi. Really close racing there. Hard, really close racing through the chicane, as we're also getting a Haas getting involved with Kevin Magnussen on Nicholas Latifi. That was good racing between Sebastian Vettel and Latifi there. No contact, zero contact whatsoever. That was extremely close between both of the drivers. Lap 17 of 57, as we've got some battles here. We've got Kevin Magnussen flying past Nicholas Latifi after trying to get past Sebastian Vettel but failed. Latifi has just been passed by Kevin Magnussen, who came in for a fresh set of hard compound of tyres. As we've got Pierre Gasly coming out of the pits, comfortably ahead of Fernando Alonso after his horrendously slow stop. As we've got Lando Norris up to P7 at the moment, but again, he hasn't stopped, and a couple of the drivers in front of him have at the moment. So Norris is yet to stop, along with quite a lot of people in the top 5. That was just a slow... Yeah, everything was slow for Alonso. Everything was slow. As we are watching Max Verstappen, as he just looks comfortable. 3.6 seconds, the gap between him and Leclerc. 3.6 seconds. So people who have yet to pit are currently Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Perez, Bottas, Hamilton, and Norris. Russell, who is up to P8, and also Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon. So all of the top 10, the whole top 10, have not pitted. We then get Pierre Gasly, who has, Fernando Alonso, who has. The two Aston Martins haven't yet come into the pits, but they did start from the pit lane. They are P13 and P14. And then we've got Magnussen, Schumacher, Latifi, Tsunoda, and Albon, who have all pitted as well. So everybody inside the top 10 has not yet pitted. Currently on lap 18, 18 of 57. 18 of 57. How is George doing? George is doing a mega stint here for Mercedes, up to P8 after passing a couple of people who have taken their pit stops at the moment, but expect him to drop back just a wee bit, just a couple of positions when he takes his pit stop. But see him going really late into this race as he started on the hard compound of tyres. The Checo and Sainz gap once again. So Carlos Sainz is currently 3.1 seconds off of Max Verstappen, and then Sergio Perez is a little over a second behind Carlos Sainz. 1.1 seconds the gap now. It is fluctuating, so occasionally it dips into the DRS range below 1 second, but then sometimes it will just pop back up above that DRS range detection. It's hovering around a second between Perez and Carlos Sainz. What has happened to Albon? Nothing. Nothing has actually happened to Albon as of yet. He is currently running in P19. He is just taking a pit stop at the moment, and a lot of the people around him had taken pit stops, and he was in a close battle with Tsunoda, Latifi, Schumacher, Magnussen, etc. So he's just dropped to the back of that field at the moment. So we're currently on lap 19 of 57 as we are on board with Sergio Perez as he hunts down Carlos Sainz for P3, as there's around a second between them, as we have Lando Norris coming into the pits. Lando Norris is coming into the pit lane. So here we go, the first driver in the top 10 to come into the pits. What tyre is he going on to? Mediums come off, and nice shiny hards go on. Again, a slow stop, 3.6 seconds. David Beckham there shaking his head at that one. 3.6 seconds, that stop for Lando Norris. Where does he come out? Oh, not in that riffraff of the Aston Martin battle. Oh, right in the middle of the Aston Martins. Is Sebastian Vettel going to get past Lando Norris? No, the sandwich of... Oh, blimey, that was close. That was very close. Okay, we've got Sebastian Vettel ahead of Lando Norris. We've got Kevin Magnussen battling Lando Norris as well. Oh, that's a disaster on the outlap for Lando Norris. An absolute disaster. He came out in front of Vettel and Magnussen, but Vettel and Magnussen are now both through ahead of Lando Norris down in P15. That is not good. That is not good whatsoever. He's now got to do on-track overtakes against these people. At least they're the slightly slower cars. The McLaren is definitely quicker than these drivers, but that is not what Lando Norris wanted. Not what he wanted at all. Oh no, losing power. Losing power for Sergio Perez. Oh no. Oh no. So Sergio Perez is just complaining, screaming at his engineer that he's losing power, but his engineer is trying to tell him that the power unit is fine. It's just he's backed off of the toe. No, we've also got Lando Norris going slowly. Is Lando Norris going slowly? It just looked like he got overtaken again by Mick Schumacher massively. That looked really bizarre. That looked like Lando Norris slowed down so much, and then Schumacher just blasted past. Oh dear. So we've got loss of power for Sergio Perez. We've got Norris being overtaken by Schumacher after a slow pit stop. What is going on? So here we go. On board with Lando Norris, who is now P16. P16. Oh, he just locked up and went wide. Okay, yeah, he just locked up and went deep, and then Schumacher came past. Yellow flag, I don't know what that was for. Don't know what the yellow flag was for. We just saw it waved for a couple of seconds, not too much longer than that, and there was nothing cut to it. So whether it's just someone cutting the corner, not 100% sure on that one. As we're on lap 21 of 57, expect the top 5 to start coming into the pits anytime soon. Oh, okie doke. Perez is now being told to do particular things on his steering wheel. Okie doke. Perez is now saying that it's all back, but he has now lost a significant amount of time. He's now 7.5 seconds. 7.5 seconds back now from Carlos Sainz and the podium paying positions after having some power unit issues. So the race is currently 57 laps long, and we are on lap 21 for those of you that are asking. Lap 21 of lap 57 at the moment. As we've got Kevin Magnussen battling against, who is this? Sebastian Vettel. Is Kevin Magnussen going to get round? Oh, he almost got squeezed off the track there for Kevin Magnussen. Almost squeezed into the hard rock wall. Not quite, though. He wasn't quite going to fit through there. Yeah, not enough runoff to keep staying off the track there. The wall came up on him really quick there. But Magnussen definitely looks a bit quicker than the Aston Martins up ahead. So can he get past? Remember, the Aston Martins haven't yet stopped, whereas the two Haas cars have. So it's definitely going to be hurting the two Haas cars for their chance of scoring the low end of the top 10 points here. So P9 and P10. Let's have a look at some of these questions and comments that people have been putting in. When is there rain? That's a good question. I don't think there is actually going to be any rain. There hasn't been much chatter of it in the Grand Prix and from the commentators or from the engineers, but there is around a 30 to 40% chance that there could be some rain. So there could, but it's not a guaranteed. As we're currently on lap 22 of 57, as we're still on board with Kevin Magnussen as he tries to get past Sebastian Vettel, who has yet to pit, has Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll for that fact in P13. The two Aston Martins had to start from the pit lane, and they are going extremely long as Kevin Magnussen has a little twitch down into 17 as we come out onto the start-finish straight. That's going to really hurt his run with DRS there. They're too far back, way too far back for the Haas drivers. He was all squirrely coming out of the exit of 17 onto the start-finish straight. Oh, a safety car would absolutely ruin Verstappen. People are thinking that. I think a safety car would be good for Verstappen right now. You know, if a safety car would actually be good to. It depends where it was called out though, because a 3-second gap is quite sensible. The safety car gets called, everybody slows down, you then all come into the pits and you maintain the same. Well, it's 4.6 seconds now. The gap. A safety car would be fine because he's got the pace. He clearly has the pace over Leclerc as he's extending the gap, setting the fastest laps at 1:33.1 for Max Verstappen right now. That is rapid for a race pace at the minute, but he still hasn't stopped. So the top 9, everyone down to Esteban Ocon haven't stopped. Lewis Hamilton, though, coming into the pits. He is P6. In comes Lewis Hamilton into the pits off of his medium tyres. Can we actually have a sub 3-second pit stop? Can we have a sub 3-second pit stop here for Mercedes? And yes, we can. Yes, we absolutely can. 2.7-second stop there for Lewis Hamilton as he comes off of the mediums and onto the hards. So he loses out to George Russell, who is now up to P6. He has also yet to stop. And Daniel Ricciardo, does Daniel Ricciardo get in front of Lewis Hamilton? It's close. Hamilton is ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. So Hamilton only lost 1 place from that pit stop. He is down to P7. But he is now pitted. That was quite a nice pit stop there from the Mercedes boys to get him out in front of Daniel Ricciardo there in the McLaren. Russell is now beating Hamilton. We've got comments about that already. That didn't take long at all. That did not take long whatsoever to hear those. So Russell has yet to pit on the hards, and then Hamilton has just taken his pit stop at the moment. Has Bottas pitted? No. So the top 6, everybody down to Russell, has not pitted yet. The top 6 have not pitted yet. Has Max Verstappen pitted? No, they have not. They have not. So no, Bottas has not pitted. As we're currently looking at... So we are looking at Leclerc at the moment and his front wing, but I can't see where the damage is. there's no obvious, like, flappy bit or thing falling off. So I'm not sure. Oh, as Leclerc sets the fastest lap, so it's clearly not hurting him too badly at the moment, as we are on lap 24 of 57. I'm not sure what that damage is on about, where we heard that radio message a long, long time ago now from GP to Max Verstappen. That's an interesting one, as they've done 23 laps on these mediums. I was not expecting them to do that many. Not at all. As we're coming up to the halfway mark of this Grand Prix, 57 laps, and we are on lap 24 at the moment. So the top six have yet to pit. We've then got Ricciardo, Ocon, Stroll, Vettel, and also Latifi, who have not pitted as well. Oh, Leclerc complaining massively that the car is really difficult to drive. Complaining hugely that the car is difficult to drive from Charles Leclerc. Here we go. We've got one of the Ferraris coming in. We have Leclerc. Leclerc is coming in for a pit stop. So Leclerc blinks first of the front runners. I think Verstappen has enough of a margin. He's got a 5-second margin to comfortably react. The undercut isn't too powerful here at this circuit, as Leclerc, a 3.2-second stop. That's not too bad. It's not quick, but it's not slow. So where is Leclerc going to be? In that nice gap ahead of Valtteri Bottas, who is currently still P5, actually doing a stellar job for Alfa Romeo in his lonely little world. Quicker than the two Mercedes that are behind him, but then much slower than the two Ferraris and the two Red Bulls ahead of him. So now, who's going to react to Charles Leclerc coming into the pits? Is Verstappen going to come in this lap on lap number 25? Or is it going to be Carlos Sainz or Sergio Perez behind him that react? Interesting stuff. Why isn't Perez pitting? Perez dropped off massively from Carlos Sainz, so he's not really in a battle with anybody, so it doesn't really make any difference if he pits now or pits in a couple of laps' time, because the power unit issue that he had, where he lost all of the time, has sort of taken him out of that podium fight, unfortunately, as he's 9 seconds back now. It's a bit of a shame. It is a bit of a shame. Russell will pit at the same time as Valtteri Bottas. I would imagine so. The aim for Russell is probably to hope for a safety car, really. Like a safety car would just be a birthday cake to George Russell right now. A safety car would be so good for Russell. But I would say just pit whenever the hard tyres are done, and he is golden. What lap? We are currently on lap 26. Lap 26 of 57, almost at the halfway mark of this Miami Grand Prix, as we're on board with Sebastian Vettel as we go through the tight twiddly section as he chases down Lawrence Stroll. The two Aston Martins have yet to pit at the moment. They are in P12 and P13 after starting from the pit lane due to some fuel temperature issues at the start of the race. So would the safety car be good for Valtteri Bottas? No, I don't think it would actually, because it would put Hamilton and, well, Russell as well. It would put both of the Mercedes right on his tail. So when Bottas comes into the pits, he's going to be just in front of Hamilton by around 3 to 4 seconds, and that gap would be destroyed. So I would say a safety car would be bad for Valtteri Bottas. It would be exceptional for George Russell, as we've got Verstappen. Verstappen is coming into the pits. Max Verstappen is coming into the pit lane on lap 26 of 57. Lap 26 of 57, we have Max Verstappen, the race leader, coming into the pits. So we're going to have Carlos Sainz for the first time this year leading a Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz is going to be leading the race for the first time this year in the Ferrari. As he goes through down into turn number 1, Carlos Sainz is now leading. Has Daniel Ricciardo pitted? No, Daniel Ricciardo has not pitted yet. Daniel Ricciardo has not pitted. So Verstappen has come out quite comfortably ahead of Sergio Perez, and he can just get back on his merry way. So I would imagine Verstappen, so what's that gap now? Verstappen to Leclerc. That's huge. That is a huge, that's an 8-second gap between the two of them. between Verstappen and Leclerc. 8 seconds after the pit. So Leclerc has had a torrid time on the hards at the moment. So I'd imagine we're going to see Sainz and Perez come into the pits soon. I would say they're going to leave Sainz out as long as possible to try and hold up Verstappen, but I don't think it's going to work too well. I don't think it's going to work too well. The pace differential between Verstappen on fresh tyres and Sainz on absolutely pooped mediums is going to be ludicrous. Verstappen is now on the hard compound of tyre. He is just pitted on lap 26. We are now on lap 27, and he came off of the mediums onto the hards. What has happened to Yuki? Yuki just pitted at the wrong time, and he lost an awful lot of ground, exactly like Lando Norris. He had a slow pit stop, did Lando Norris, and probably similar to Yuki Tsunoda as well, and they just ended up pitting at the slightly wrong time. As we've got Carlos Sainz, the race leader, coming into the pits for Ferrari. So it is now only Sergio Perez of the top 4, and then also Valtteri Bottas, who is yet to pit. Oh no, Valtteri Bottas has come in. Valtteri Bottas has come into the pits. I did not see that. Valtteri Bottas is now P6, behind George Russell at the moment, who's up to P5, having not taken a pit stop yet on the hard compound of tyre. So now we've got a couple of drivers who haven't actually pitted. We've got Daniel Ricciardo is the big one in P8, who hasn't pitted yet, still on the mediums, which is absolutely insane. And we've then got George Russell in P5 and the 2 Aston Martins that haven't pitted just yet. What has happened to Guan Yu Zhou? I don't know. It was a mechanical issue very early on in the Grand Prix, and I missed exactly what caused the mechanical issue, but he was wheeled into his garage after coming into the pits rather slowly. Update on Lando Norris. P16 after pitting and having a slow stop. It was a 3.6 second stop, which then put him in the riff-raff battle of the 2 Aston Martins and the 2 Haas cars, and then he just got overtaken by Magnussen, Vettel and Schumacher, and now he's currently stuck behind them. So the 2 Aston Martins haven't stopped yet, and that has completely ruined Norris's race, unfortunately. I saw a question about Esteban Ocon, but I've just lost it. How did Esteban Ocon do something? But I have lost the question. I have lost the question completely. What has happened to Lewis Hamilton? A slightly poor start from P6 on the grid, fell down to P8, worked his way back up towards P7, and is now battling with Valtteri Bottas. There's around a 5-6 second gap between the two of them after Valtteri Bottas took his pit stop. George Russell has just worked his way through the field, but he hasn't pitted yet. So George Russell hasn't pitted yet, so when he does, he will lose quite a significant amount of places, unless, of course, a safety car comes out. If a safety car comes out in the next 5-10 laps time, George Russell is going to have the biggest birthday cake with 1,000,000 candles on it. So Russell, Bottas, and Hamilton are always together. They always are. And they probably will be for most of this season, to be honest. That Alfa Romeo does look pretty rapid in the hands of Valtteri Bottas. As we've got Hamilton already complaining about his hard tyres. But do we believe him? Do we believe Lewis Hamilton and his tyre talk? Do we believe him? I personally don't. So who is yet to pit? Who is yet to pit? We've got George Russell yet to pit in P5. We've got Daniel Ricciardo yet to pit in P8. Then we've got the 2 Aston Martins in P12 and in P14 yet to pit. And then we've got Nicholas Latifi down in P19 yet to pit. So hopefully that answers the couple of questions there about who is yet to pit. As we are on lap 30. Lap 30 of 57. Over halfway now. Over halfway for this inaugural Miami Grand Prix, which hasn't been the most exciting. It's not been the most exciting of races at the moment, but it's definitely been an interesting strategy race. Has Gasly pitted? Yes, Pierre Gasly has pitted, but Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon and George Russell ahead of him have not. So expect him to gain a couple of places when they do. Update on the Haas cars, please. Haas, where are Haas currently? Magnussen P13, Schumacher P15. Unfortunately, it was just a couple of bad starts and some pit stop issues being held up with the two Aston Martins, who haven't actually pitted yet. So it's being stuck behind the two Astons that is costing the two Haas cars massively at the moment. Has Perez pitted? Yes, Perez has pitted. He is now onto the hard compound of tyre, and we are on lap 30. Lap 30 of 57. Has Ocon pitted? No. So Ocon and Ricciardo, and then also George Russell in the top 10 have not pitted yet. So expect Gasly to move up a couple of places when Ricciardo and Ocon come in, and then potentially another place when George Russell comes into the pits. Oh, lots of people saying the map has died. The map has died, map has died, map has died. Apparently it is now back. The map is now back. The map is now back for you guys. Oh, Kevin Magnussen, is he finally going to get past the Aston Martin of Lawrence Stroll? No, not quite. Not quite. This has really cost Haas so much time being stuck behind the Aston Martins, who are going as long into this race as they possibly can on the hard compound of tyre. The two Haas have been glued to the two Aston Martin cars, and it has ruined their chance of scoring points, unfortunately, I think. How many laps are left? We are on lap 31 of 57, so there is 27 laps remaining. 27 laps remaining. Any weather updates? Currently dry, and I think no real chance of raining because there hasn't really been any information regarding the rain, as Vettel gets past Magnussen. Vettel overtook Magnussen just there. So we've now got the two Aston Martins followed by the two Haas cars as Daniel Ricciardo finally comes into the pits and he drops behind Lando Norris to P16. Daniel Ricciardo in the pits, off of the medium tyres finally, onto the hards in P16. Make that P17 as Alex Albon gets ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. Is Perez catching up to Sainz? Yes, actually. Yes, he is. Slowly, but yes, he is. Currently 5.1 seconds the gap. It was around 8 seconds before the pit stop phase. So yes, he is closing, but not by a lot. What has happened to Daniel? Ricciardo has just come into the pits, literally just from P8, and he has dropped down to P17 after just losing out to Alex Albon on the pit exit. What has happened to Guan Yu Zhou? He had a mechanical issue very, very early on in the Grand Prix and had to come into the pits to retire the car. So there was no incident on track. He just had to force retire the car. What has happened to Lando? Oh, that was heartbreaking what happened to Lando. He had a really, really slow pit stop. 3.6 seconds, 3.8 seconds, something along those lines. And then he just ended up being put in the middle of the riff-raff battle with the two Aston Martins and the Haas cars, who haven't yet pitted, the two Aston Martins, and he hasn't been able to get past. He's just stuck in a DRS train at the minute is Lando Norris. So that has really killed his race. As if he hadn't had a slow pit stop, he'd have come out in P11 ahead of all of this, and he'd have been challenging Fernando Alonso, but he had that slow stop and he was put out behind them, unfortunately. Has Russell pitted? No. So George Russell, Esteban Ocon, and the two Aston Martins and Nicholas Latifi are the only drivers who are yet to pit. So hopefully that answers that question of who hasn't pitted. George Russell, Esteban Ocon, the two Aston Martins, and then Nicholas Latifi. Who do you think is going to win this Grand Prix? Max Verstappen. If it stays like this and there are no safety cars, Max Verstappen. He's got an enormous amount of pace in hand at the minute over Charles Leclerc and the two Ferraris. And then Perez isn't really in the battle at all after a couple of power unit issues, and he lost out significantly to Carlos Sainz. Yeah, it's going to be Verstappen if it stays like this for the next 23, 24 laps. 23, 24 laps. When is DRS activated? DRS was activated 30 laps ago after lap number 3 and has been active for the whole Grand Prix. When did Max overtake Charles Leclerc? It was around 20 laps ago. It was before the pit stop phases, around lap 13, 14 or so. Oh, I missed that radio there from Haas to Schumacher. I wasn't quite sure what that was there. When do you think George Russell is going to come into the pits? Um, Oh, good question. When is George Russell going to come into the pits? So there's currently 2 seconds between him and Bottas, and then 10 seconds between him and Perez. So he's not really closing on Perez, and he's not really pulling away from Bottas. So they're just holding out for a safety car. Because if a safety car comes out, he is quids in. He's massive at the moment, but I'm not sure if a safety car is going to come out at the moment. So George Russell hasn't pitted yet, and he is currently P5. Uh, People are saying that Aston Martin have pitted. They haven't. They haven't yet. Aston Martin are still P11 for Lawrence Stroll and P14 for Sebastian Vettel. They have not pitted yet. And Russell also hasn't pitted yet, as there are still lots of people asking who has and hasn't pitted at the moment. So Russell, Ocon, the two Aston Martins, and Nicholas Latifi haven't pitted yet. As we've got Leclerc setting the fastest lap on lap 34, 7.3 seconds down on Max Verstappen. 7.3 seconds. That is quite a significant gap. That is a very significant gap. How many laps? We're currently on lap 34. Lap 34 of lap 57. How is Tsunoda P18? Tsunoda just pitted on the wrong lap. Just completely pitted on the wrong lap, and he ended up coming out behind everybody and is now stuck in that DRS train, who is now behind Mick Schumacher, Kevin Magnussen in P12. There's a bit of a train to P12, and Tsunoda is just caught in that. So again, like the two McLarens, the pit stops have really ruined their races, unfortunately. What has happened to Lando Norris? Very similar to Tsunoda. It was just a poor pit stop that put him out behind the two Aston Martins, who were going really long into this race, and he got stuck in a DRS train and hasn't been able to overtake. So it's definitely been a bit of a processional Grand Prix in that regard, that not a lot has really happened. But it has been an interesting Grand Prix. There have been lots of decent overtakes. A lot of decent overtakes here. As who are we currently on board? Well, we're currently on board with the DRS train, as I was talking about that just then, as we're looking at Lando Norris, who has got Sebastian Vettel, the two Haas cars, Lance Stroll, all ahead of him. So, it's a bit of a shame for Lando Norris and also Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda, but it's just... It is what it is sometimes. Oh, as we've got Kevin Magnussen going wide, as we've got Mick Schumacher getting past. Down into turn 17 on the exit down to the final corner. We've got Kevin Magnussen going wide as Mick Schumacher gets past up into P12. Is Kevin Magnussen going to challenge again down into turn 1? Oh, he has a peak, but not quite. Has a peak, but not quite. Can Sebastian Vettel now get past Kevin Magnussen? Battle resumed between these two. Magnussen versus Vettel. I don't think that's going to happen there. But definitely a small little mistake from Kevin Magnussen into turn 17. As Schumacher is able to get past. So hopefully he can now go and challenge Lance Stroll for P11. Oh no, Sebastian Vettel, no! No, Sebastian Vettel locks up massively. And Lando Norris goes flying past. Sebastian Vettel locks up hugely on the inside front and flies off of the circuit. And Lando Norris breezes past as Sebastian Vettel rejoins down in P15. Ouch. Ouch. And that's very unfortunate now for Sebastian Vettel. As like Brundle has just said, he's now outside of the DRS range and off of that train. So he's either going to have to close back up to get back into the train, or he's now stuck. He may not have the pace to get back in. Oh, as we've got a pit stop for Nicholas Latifi. A pit stop for Latifi, finally. He's gone from P19 to P19. P19 to P19. Nicholas Latifi on the medium tyre. He has just come back out onto the track. So we've got Max Verstappen leading the way from the two Ferraris, Leclerc ahead of Sainz. Then we've got Sergio Perez in P4, George Russell, who is yet to pit, George Russell yet to pit in P5, still on the hards. Then we've got Valtteri Bottas, Lewis Hamilton, P6 and P7. Still 2.2 seconds between those drivers. Then we've got Esteban Ocon, also yet to pit in P8. Then Pierre Gasly and Fernando Alonso in P9 and 10, rounding out the top 10 points paying positions. We then get Lance Stroll's Aston Martin. He is also yet to pit after starting from the pit lane. The two Haas cars, Mick Schumacher ahead of Kevin Magnussen. Then Lando Norris in P14 after having a horrible pit stop, which put him behind a DRS train. Then we've got Sebastian Vettel, the only other driver yet to pit, along with his teammate Esteban Ocon and George Russell. Vettel is down in P15. We've then got Albon Ricciardo, again after a horrible pit stop, and then losing out to Alex Albon right at the pit exit, and he's just had no pace on the hards whatsoever. And then we've got Tsunoda in P18, again, like the two McLarens, a terrible pit stop put them in the DRS train and wasn't able to make any positions up after that. And then we've got Nicholas Latifi, who casually, after his only pit stop, is now 30 seconds behind everybody else. So that is a race rundown at the moment on lap 37 of 57 for this Miami Grand Prix. And let's just go through a couple of the questions. What has happened to Checo? Checo had a power unit issue, where he had a massive loss of power and he dropped off hugely down to 8 seconds behind Carlos Sainz, and he's able to claw back a little bit of that gap after the pit stop phases. It's now at 6 seconds between them, but I think that's the battle for the podiums all done and dusted, as the top four are so spread out. We've got Max Verstappen leading 8 seconds to Charles Leclerc, 16 seconds to Carlos Sainz, 6 seconds to Sergio Perez, then 12 seconds back to Valtteri Bottas. The top 5 are so spread out. Then we do have quite a close battle actually between Russell, Bottas and Hamilton. They're only separated by 3 seconds, those three at the moment. Will Haas score points? It's close. If they can get past Lance Stroll, yes, but I don't think they can get past Lance Stroll. That is their difficulty at the moment. The Aston Martins have been a real cork in the bottle for a lot of teams, namely McLaren. The Aston Martins have been a massive pain for them at the moment. Is the rain coming? No, unfortunately. I don't think the rain is coming at the moment, unfortunately. There was a 30 to 40% chance of rain. People are saying rain in 8 minutes? Rain soon? I've not heard that at all. We're currently looking at radars at the moment and things. It doesn't look like there's going to be rain. I haven't been told that there will be. Has Verstappen pitted? Yes. Pretty much everybody is pitted apart from George Russell in P5, Esteban Ocon in P8, and then the two Aston Martins, Lance Stroll in P11 and Sebastian Vettel in P15. Has Mick pitted? Yes, he has. So everybody's pitted bar those 4 drivers I've just stated. Is Max waiting for the later laps to try and set the fastest lap? Well, he's got the fastest lap right now, so I'm not sure. He's already got it. So I mean, he's got the pace in hand. Has Max Verstappen at every turn? He's proved that he's got the pace this race. As he's currently 7.5 seconds. The gap has gone down half a second in the last couple of laps between them. It was 8. It's now 7.6. But he has had enormous amounts of pace over the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. What has happened to Guan Yu Zhou? Guan Yu Zhou, our only retirement of this Grand Prix very early on, and it was a mechanical issue. He was forced to retire. He came into the pits very slowly and then drove into the garage. A mechanical issue for Guan Yu Zhou. Oh, Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly. I think there might have been contact there. We just cut straight to them as Pierre Gasly loses out to Lance Stroll. I'm not exactly sure what happened just there. We cut instantly to some action between Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly as we are on lap 40. Lap 40 at the moment of 57. Less than 20 laps to go. So Alonso down into turn number 1. Contact. There was contact. Ooh. So Alonso locks up down into turn 1 on the inside, bounces over the curb, and then just hits the rear of Pierre Gasly. Again, no debris is flying, so it was a small little love tap between Alonso and Gasly, but definitely contact between the two drivers there. Contact down at turn 1 between Gasly and Alonso. Alonso now P9, Gasly the biggest loser of that incident down in P11, having lost out to Lawrence Stroll, who has now moved up to P10, but remember, Stroll has not pitted yet. Is Max slowing down? I'm not sure. I'll have to take a look at the gap because I currently can't see it as we're looking at the fact that Leclerc started first and is now second. The gap is 7.2 seconds. So it's coming down about a tenth and a bit a lap. A tenth and a bit a lap. The gap is coming down. So it was 7.6 a couple of laps back, and then it was 8 seconds a couple of laps before that. So yeah, about a tenth and a half per lap it's coming down. So very, very slowly. What has happened to Lando Norris? Lando Norris has just had a horrible, horrible weekend down in P14. At the moment, he had a really bad pit stop, and then he was stuck in a DRS train, which he is at the moment. As we get Pierre Gasly moving past Mick Schumacher. Oh no, Schumacher ahead of Gasly. Gasly is dropping down. Crash! Lando Norris has had a big crash with Pierre Gasly. The tyre is off. Norris spins round and round and round, and Norris is out of the Grand Prix. Norris is done. That is going to be a safety car. A virtual safety car immediately has been deployed. But Lando Norris is out of this Grand Prix. Contact with Pierre Gasly. Contact with Pierre Gasly at the end of Sector 1. Norris is sent spinning round and round and round. The tyre ripped off. This is great news for George Russell. Absolutely insane news for George Russell as he comes into the pits from P5 off of those hard compound of tyres onto the mediums for George Russell out into P7 he is going to be from P12 up to P7 for George Russell. But that is heartbreak for Lando Norris. We need to see exactly what happened there as I'm not too sure. But we're on lap 41 of 57 with a virtual safety car. A crash between Pierre Gasly and Lando Norris has caused a safety or a virtual safety car, a VSC. I'm surprised it's only the virtual safety car, looking at the position of where the car is left and the fact there's an entire tyre carcass. So here we are on board with Pierre Gasly going through the fast left, right, left. Gets a little bit out of shape. So Gasly is now off circuit, gets passed by the Haas, rejoins, gets on the power, and then dinks into Norris. Blimey. So that for people that want a small little reference, that's a very similar incident to Latifi and Stroll of Melbourne. It's Norris coming past. It's Norris coming past Gasly on the outside, and they just come together. I'd have to say there's a small onus there is on Gasly, the fact he was off circuit coming back on. I don't know who's to blame for that one. I don't know. I am unsure who's to blame for that one. I would say the onus is lying on Pierre Gasly personally. So it is currently a virtual safety car. A virtual safety car. No, full safety car. It is now a full safety car. The full safety car has come out. The full safety car is out on lap 42. So we're going to have a 15-lap sprint to the end. The full safety car is out. The full safety car is out. So this is going to be golden for the Aston Martins, as they've already come into the pits, actually. Lance Stroll is now down in P14, but everybody is now going to bunch up. There is now a full safety car on lap 42. We've got an awful lot of people coming into the pits at the moment. Sergio Perez has come in for a second time. I don't know what tyre he's on. as we've got Esteban Ocon coming in for his first stop, going on to the softs. So we've got Perez on the mediums. Perez is on the mediums at the moment, with Sainz, Leclerc, and Verstappen ahead of him on older hards. Okay, this race is getting interesting. Okie dokie. This race is going to be good. So we've got Daniel Ricciardo coming in for a new set of softs as well. Okay. Right, we're going to have a couple of laps of safety car action now. Well, safety car action, if you want to call it safety car action, as there's still a bit of large chunks of debris on the circuit. Just on the exit of Sector 1 going into Sector 2, but contact between Pierre Gasly and then also Lando Norris. I think the onus and the blame slightly lies there with Pierre Gasly, as Alonso gets a 5-second time penalty. Alonso gets a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision down at turn number 1 a little while ago. This was a little while ago with Pierre Gasly as well. So Pierre Gasly actually involved in a couple of incidents in this race at the moment. But Perez is looking quite good here. So Verstappen, Leclerc, and Sainz, P1, 2, and 3, are on old hards, but we've got Perez behind them all on fresh mediums. Interesting. So how many laps are left? We're currently on lap 43 of 57. 43 of 57. We're going to have a couple more laps of the safety car because there are a few lapped cars in the way. So we're now going to have to wait for all, not any, all of the lapped cars to go round after that rule change from last year. Oh, sorry if I go silent for a little bit. I'm just currently listening to team radios of people. So, interesting stuff. So a good conversation there between Hamilton and Bono about whether he should pit or not. So if he pits, he's going to lose the position to Russell, which he doesn't want to do, but he wants fresh tyres because he doesn't want his old hard. So it's a bit of a predicament there for Lewis Hamilton, who is in P6. But at least he's closed that gap now to Valtteri Bottas with this safety car. So I would expect this safety car to come out or come in around lap 46, maybe 45, 46. So we've got another couple of laps behind the safety car at the moment. So what is the order before I go back to some of the questions at the moment behind the safety car? So we've got Verstappen leading, from Leclerc, from Sainz, from Perez, who is now on fresh mediums, brand new spanking mediums. Then we've got Valtteri Bottas, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, who has made up 5 places now from P12 after going super long into the race on the hards. We've then got Fernando Alonso, who has a 5-second penalty for dinking into Pierre Gasly at turn number 1 a couple of laps back. Then we have Mick Schumacher. Mick Schumacher up in P9 after getting ahead finally of the 2 Aston Martins who have come into the pits. We then have Esteban Ocon completing the top 10. We then get Alex Albon in P11, Lawrence Stroll, Kevin Magnussen, Sebastian Vettel, Pierre Gasly, Nicholas Latifi, Yuki Tsunoda, and then our 2 retirements, Lando Norris, who has just had an accident with Pierre Gasly, and then Guan Yu Zhou, who had a mechanical retirement a couple of laps ago, around 40 laps ago for Guan Yu Zhou. Has Russell pitted under this safety car? Yes, Russell has now pitted under this safety car and is on medium tyres. So expect Russell to get past Hamilton on these new tyres that he's got. So I'm now going to go back through some of these questions that we've got as we are now under safety car conditions for the next couple of laps. Do you think the Red Bulls will malfunction again? I hope not. In this situation that we're in now, with Perez on fresh mediums, I really don't want their cars to break. I really don't want that to happen because this is going to be an exciting end to the race, as we haven't had the lapped cars overtake order being given yet. So this safety car will go on for another couple of laps. People thinking that Checo is going to get a podium. That is 100% on the cards. The Grand Prix victory is on the cards. The 3 drivers in front of him have got to warm up their hard tyres, and Checo is on fresh mediums. The victory is on the cards for Checo, I think. Albon for points. Albon for points in the Williams. Easy P11 for Alex Albon at the moment. As long as he can hold off Lawrence Stroll behind him, I think that's doable. He might score points. Mick Schumacher up in P9 could score some points. So what has happened to Lando Norris? A contact with Lando Norris and Pierre Gasly sent Lando Norris spinning and spinning into the wall. The first accident at this Miami circuit during the Grand Prix, currently on lap 44 of 57. So Lando Norris had a collision with Pierre Gasly, or Pierre Gasly had a collision with Lando Norris, whichever way round you want to put it. I personally put it around 70-30 towards Gasly. That's roughly what I'm thinking at the moment. Gasly was coming back onto the circuit. He was moving a bit slow. It was avoidable, definitely. But I think the onus lies a little bit on Pierre Gasly there. Currently on lap 44. Currently on lap 44 of 57, for those asking. Lap 44. So Bottas is leading both of the Mercs. Bottas is indeed leading both of the Mercs. This is going to be an interesting sprint to the finish. We're now on lap 45. Lap 45. 12 laps to go. Are they letting lapped cars through? They will, but they haven't given the order yet. So lapped cars will be allowed to pass, but they haven't been given the order yet. Thank you for saying that you love the commentary. I appreciate that. It has been a long couple of hours so far, but it's been a very good race. Lapped cars have now been able to overtake. Cars 10, Pierre Gasly, car 6, Nicholas Latifi, and car 22, Yuki Tsunoda. They are the only 3 cars that are lapped, and they have now been allowed to unlap themselves. That's an interesting piece of team radio from Pierre Gasly there. He was complaining that the car was almost impossible to turn. Almost that he lost like hydraulic steering, which is why he went wide to go off the circuit, which led to the accident with Lando Norris. That's interesting. So his car, Gasly's car, could have actually been braking. That's interesting. Right, where are we up to at the moment with some of these questions, as we are still behind the safety car at the moment. Lap 45, as we're coming round the final corner down towards lap 46 of 57. It's going to be a little over 10 lap sprint to the end of the Grand Prix. This is going to be good. I am very excited to see what Sergio Perez can do on his fresh mediums up against everybody else on their hards. This is going to be really, really good. Could Bottas get a podium? If Perez goes for a ballsy move and it doesn't pay off and he ends up colliding with one of the Ferraris, yes, Bottas could get a podium. But I don't think in this position, if everybody stays clean racing, Bottas will get a podium. I don't think that'll happen. As the safety car is in this lap. We are on lap 46. The safety car will be coming in at the end of lap 46. How long until Latifi unlaps himself? He's currently halfway around the circuit at the moment. Yeah, they're a couple of corners away there. They're at least a sector up in front, which is nice. But we've got the safety car coming in at the end of this lap. We're going to have a 10-lap sprint to the end of this race. We've got Sergio Perez on brand new medium tyres. We've got Max Verstappen, who has led this Grand Prix for so long, on 19-lap old hard tyres. We've then got the 2 Ferraris, who have fought ferociously for P2 and for P3, also on hard compound of tyres. What is going to happen for the next 10 laps? We've got George Russell in P7 on new medium tyres? Is he going to be able to pass and overtake on-track Lewis Hamilton on old hards? Can he even get Valtteri Bottas, who has stayed P5 this whole race? He has stayed P5 this whole race and is definitely in consideration for my driver of the day for Valtteri Bottas. But here we go. Safety car is ending. We're going to have Verstappen slowing the pack down just in a moment's time. Here we go. Here we go. So Verstappen is now starting to back them up just a little bit as we go down the main back straight, down towards turn 17. He's backing them up. He is backing them up. What is going to happen? Here we go. When's he going to go? When is Verstappen going to go? What can Sergio Perez do? What can George Russell do? Can Mick Schumacher score some points? The last 10 laps of this Miami Grand Prix. Oh, as I think we've got Pierre Gasly retiring actually down in P18. As we get going, no, we don't get going. Verstappen looked like he was going there. As we come round turn 17, is he going to get a drive off? There we go. Verstappen has gone. Verstappen has gone. Verstappen has gone. Oh, here we go. Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez on Carlos Sainz. Remember, there is going to be no DRS until 3 laps after the safety car. Perez round to the outside of Carlos Sainz. Is he going to get this into turn number 1? No, not quite. Can he get the cutback? We've got Valtteri Bottas challenging Sergio Perez as well. Not quite. We've got Lewis Hamilton and also George Russell battling. No positional changes as of yet for everybody. We are still line astern safety car order. Yellow flag. Yellow flag. We've got Lawrence Stroll and Kevin Magnussen going backwards. Immediate green flag. I'm not sure what that was for. We've got Kevin Magnussen falling down the order though. We've still got Max Verstappen leading from Charles Leclerc, from Carlos Sainz, but Perez is all over the back of the Spaniard's Ferrari. We've then got Valtteri Bottas still P5. We've got Lewis Hamilton challenging him with Russell challenging Hamilton as well. But it is still Max Verstappen leading from Charles Leclerc, just 0.6 between them. Leclerc still holds the fastest lap at the moment. We've got Sainz 1.5 seconds back. A nice gap has opened up between the top 2 and P3 and P4. Perez has not made the inroads that I thought he would, but there are still 10 laps to go of this Grand Prix. There are still 10 laps left. Lap 47 of 57 as we go through the chicane on the run down to turn 17 and onto the start finish straight. Is anybody going to be able to get past? Are we going to enable a DRS train in 3 laps time? Can Sergio Perez utilize these new mediums and get past? It's looking difficult. It is looking difficult for Sergio Perez to get past. As we come onto the main straight, can he dive bomb down into turn 1? He is right on the gearbox of Carlos Sainz, but he doesn't have the pace without the DRS. He doesn't have it. He's going to have to force the Spaniard into a mistake down into turn number 2, turn number 3, flat out. He's not got it. Sergio Perez hasn't quite got it. He needs the DRS. He needs the DRS to be enabled in order to have that power down the main straight and the long back straight, because he's going to get much better drive off of all of these corners. His traction is going to be so much better, but he's not getting it just yet. He needs the DRS, and we're having a significant gap open up between Leclerc and Sainz. It's now over 2 seconds at the minute. Over 2 seconds the battle are now between P2 and P3, as there's half a second between Leclerc and Verstappen. Leclerc holds the fastest lap at the moment ahead of Max Verstappen. Just 7.5 tenths between the two drivers, but still no DRS for a couple more laps or so. Lap 49, it will be enabled. And then maybe we'll see a couple of overtakes, as the only thing we've seen so far is Kevin Magnussen going backwards. That's the only thing we've seen after a safety car restart. That's one of the calmest safety car restarts ever, as we've got Alex Albon challenging for Esteban Ocon for P10 for a points paying position in the Williams. We've got Mick Schumacher still in the points in P9. Can they hold that? We've got Perez challenging Sainz still. He is all over the back of him, getting much better traction as we come out onto the start finish straight to start lap 49 of 57. Perez just isn't close enough. But I think now the DRS may just be enabled for this lap, or it will be for next lap. But then we're going to end up with the DRS train being enabled. It's just going to be a DRS train and no one's going to be able to get past. Perhaps Perez will be able to get through. DRS is now enabled. Can Sergio Perez utilize these new mediums and get Carlos Sainz to get P3 for this Miami Grand Prix? Can he do it in his Red Bull? And then can he even challenge Charles Leclerc? Can he gain that 3 seconds now between Sainz and Leclerc? Can he gain that? Oh, not quite. Not quite yet there. As we go through the stadium section for Sergio Perez, still on the back of Carlos Sainz. So slightly further down the order, we've got Russell still challenging Lewis Hamilton, but still behind. So we've got Russell in P7, we've got Hamilton in P6, we've got Bottas in P5. They're in their own little train. We've then got Alonso, Schumacher, Ocon. They're in their own little train for the final point-paying positions. We've then got Albon holding on to P11, but he's 1.5 seconds back from Ocon in the Alpine. He is then holding off Sebastian Vettel, who is in P12. As we get the two Mercedes battling. We get George Russell versus Lewis Hamilton. No, Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri Bottas has gone massively wide. He has just lost out to both of the Mercedes. Bottas is down to P7 as both Mercedes get through. Hamilton up to P5, Russell up to P6. We've got Valtteri Bottas going massively wide at turn number 17. Oh, that was heartbreaking for Bottas, who has been so strong this entire race. One mistake and he has lost 2 positions to the two Mercedes as they both fly through. Hamilton in P5, Russell in P6, Valtteri Bottas now down in P7. But we've got George Russell hounding the back of his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Can Hamilton hold off for 7 more laps? We've got Leclerc in the DRS range of Max Verstappen. We've got Perez in the DRS range of Carlos Sainz. But there's now 4 seconds. 4 seconds between Leclerc and Sainz. Perez needs to get past Sainz quickly to challenge for P2 if he wants to challenge. Russell has got past Hamilton. Russell is through. Hamilton is back through, but we're not looking at it. I'm just watching it on the timing tower. Russell is back through again, but we are looking at the battle for the lead between Verstappen and Leclerc as they are challenging each other for the lead of the Miami Grand Prix. But George Russell is through. George Russell has gone through Lewis Hamilton, but we have not seen it. We haven't seen it on the replay yet, but George Russell is up to P5 ahead of Lewis Hamilton. We've got Valtteri Bottas challenging Hamilton as well, down into turn 17 after the main straight. So what happened to Valtteri Bottas replay? Bottas hit the wall. Bottas actually hit the wall. Bottas actually hit the wall where he lost the positions, and then Russell just gets a DRS pass. So Russell just gets a DRS pass on Lewis Hamilton, but Hamilton actually outbrakes Russell, who has to go forced off the track. Round the inside there for George Russell. Much better traction there off of the corner. So Russell gets past Lewis Hamilton. As Valtteri Bottas actually made a small contact with the wall, which is where he lost the 2 positions to the 2 Mercedes. But we've still got Perez behind Carlos Sainz. I am so surprised. So they already have DRS. DRS was enabled 2 laps ago, 3 laps after the safety car comes in. DRS is enabled at the moment. We've got 0.6 between Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, 4 seconds between Leclerc and Sainz, and then 0.7 between Sainz and Perez. I'm surprised that Perez is still behind. I am very, very surprised. But this race has come alive in these last 15 laps. We've got George Russell up to P5 after getting quids in with that safety car and virtual safety car caused by Lando Norris and Pierre Gasly's accident just a couple of laps ago. We've got Valtteri Bottas down in P7 after making small contact with the wall and losing out to both of the Mercedes. We've got Fernando Alonso P8. We've got him being challenged by Mick Schumacher in P9. Going to be scoring points for the Haas if he holds this on. Down the inside goes Sergio Perez. He outbrakes himself massively and locks up as Sainz goes back past on the exit of turn 17 onto the main finish straight. Perez massively deep, hugely deep. He went for the lunge. He needed to try to get past, but he didn't quite get it. Sergio Perez is still behind at the moment. We've got a black and white flag for Lawrence Stroll for weaving on the straights. A black and white flag for Stroll. As we've got Sergio Perez just massively outbraking himself. That was a huge lunge from the Mexican as Sainz actually almost turned into him. Ay, ay, ay. Sainz nearly turned into Sergio Perez. Blimey, that was so close. That was so close. Perez tried to make the move, but he didn't quite pull it off. He outbraked himself just a little bit. The gap is now 1.4 seconds between Perez and Sainz. But we've got a battle between Leclerc and Verstappen for the Grand Prix victory. 5 laps to go of this Miami Grand Prix circuit. Just 5 laps to go. Blimey, this is absolutely incredible. We've got George Russell still in P5. Is he closing on Sergio Perez? Not really. Russell still isn't closing in on Sergio Perez. It looks like he's going to maintain his top 5 finishes for these Grand Prix so far this year. The only driver to finish in the top 5 in all of the races, but there are still 5 laps to go. Yes, Alonso does have a 5-second time penalty. That was for a contact between him and Gasly at turn number 1 a couple of laps ago, around lap 40 or so, before the accident between Gasly and Norris. But we do have Mick Schumacher up in P9, still in the points for Haas at the moment. Oh, we've got Hamilton complaining that strategy hasn't been kind to him. Hamilton saying strategy's not been kind to him. That's going to be a debrief that I think a lot of people would want to be in. A lot of people would love to be a fly on the wall in that one. Okie dokie, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? 5 laps to go. 5 laps to go. Can Leclerc get past Max Verstappen, or is he going to stay within the DRS range for the next 5 laps? What is going to happen? Should Hamilton have pitted behind the safety car to be on fresh mediums like his teammate, he'd have lost the track position to George Russell, but they'd have both been on the mediums. That's going to be a question for a later day. But we've still got the battle at the front between Verstappen and Leclerc, just less than a second between these two drivers. It looked so comfortable for Max Verstappen for all of this Grand Prix after getting past Leclerc on around lap 12 or 13. A fastest lap for Max Verstappen, a 1:31.456 for the Dutch driver. As he is he out of DRS range at the moment, or is it just under? Can't quite tell. It might just be outside of the DRS range for Charles Leclerc. I'm not too sure. Hamilton gets back past Russell. Hamilton is now up to P5 again. We haven't seen it. We still haven't seen the battle between these Mercedes live yet at the moment. Yellow flag in Sector 1. There's a yellow flag in Sector 1. We've got Vettel going down the order. We've got Vettel tumbling down the order, but green flag. Vettel has just dropped from P11 or P12 or so down to P15. We had a brief yellow flag, but it is now green. We've got Albon up into the points. Schumacher is down to 11th. What is going on? Schumacher is dropping down the order as well. No, Schumacher! Schumacher is dropping down the order. Schumacher's now down to P14, but Albon is up into the points. What has happened there? I have no idea. We haven't seen anything. But Schumacher has dropped massively along with Sebastian Vettel. Oh, here we go. Replay. We've got Mick Schumacher going up the inside of an Alpine. We've got Sebastian Vettel getting past, and Schumacher just gets squeezed a little bit. And then what? How did Schumacher drop so badly? He only lost 1 place to Sebastian Vettel. Oh, contact! Huge contact between Schumacher and Vettel. Oh, contact between Schumacher and Vettel. Vettel gets spun round. There is debris everywhere. And lots of damage to Schumacher and to Vettel. Damage between the two friends. Oh, that's heartbreaking. But between Vettel and Schumacher. We've got half a wing on the Haas of Mick Schumacher. We've got no flaw on the right-hand side of Sebastian Vettel's Aston Martin. Both of them out, or not out of this Grand Prix, but out of contention for points of this Grand Prix. Damage between the two drivers. That is heartbreaking. That is heartbreaking. We could have seen some points for Mick Schumacher, but we're going to probably get some points instead for Alex Albon in the Williams. Alex Albon in the Williams could be scoring points, but what is that going to do to the relationship between Mick Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel? What is that going to do? And yeah, lots of questions about, is there going to be a safety car? Is there for that level of debris? Potentially. I haven't seen one yet. There hasn't been one announced, but there's 1.5 seconds between Verstappen and Leclerc up front. We've then got Carlos Sainz still in P3 with 1.3 seconds back to Sergio Perez. We've got Russell P5, Hamilton P6, then Valtteri Bottas down in P7. Unfortunately, as we've got Vettel is retiring right at the end of the Grand Prix. Oh no. Sebastian Vettel is that's heartbreaking. Right at the end of the race with just 2 laps left, Sebastian Vettel retires. Oh no. 1 lap to go for a hectic end to this Miami Grand Prix. A hectic end to this race. We've got 4 DNFs at the moment. Gasly retired for an issue. I believe he was complaining about heavy steering, which is what led to him going wide with the contact to Lando Norris. We've got Sebastian Vettel retiring. We've got Norris retiring due to the crash with Gasly. We've then got Guan Yu Zhou, who retired very early on in this Grand Prix due to a mechanical issue. But we've got Max Verstappen leading the way halfway around lap 56 of 57. There's 1.5 laps left of this race. We've got incidents being noted all over the show between the stewards. I have lost track of what's actually been noted or not. What an end to this race, and there is still more to go. We've still got Albon in the points in P10. We've got Lawrence Stroll moving up a position. We've got a yellow flag now in Sector 2, green flag in Sector 2. That's our very brief yellow flag there in Sector 2. Very, very brief. But as Max Verstappen starts the final lap of the Miami Grand Prix, starting his final lap, the gap is 2 seconds now. I don't think Leclerc has anything to challenge. I don't think Leclerc has anything at all to challenge Max Verstappen to the end of this race. We've got Carlos Sainz still P3, holding off Sergio Perez after that one attempt to overtake that didn't quite go well for Sergio. Then we've got George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon, and Alex Albon in P10 still. But is anything going to happen with this next half a lap? What could happen? Do we have any close battles? We've got Tsunoda, Magnussen, and Stroll a little bit close together, but everyone is spread out. Blimey, what a last couple of laps there with contact between Vettel and Schumacher. Spinning the, I was about to say spinning the German round, but they're both German. That wouldn't make much sense. Spinning Sebastian Vettel's Aston Martin round, causing significant damage to the floor. Schumacher losing half his front wing as well in the process. But it has been another strong performance for Max Verstappen. Not quite a dominant performance, I would say, but a very strong performance from Max Verstappen there. As he comes down the main straight, round turn 17 into sector number 3 for Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. As he comes round the final corner, it is Max Verstappen who wins the Miami Grand Prix, the first race in Miami, as Charles Leclerc comes home in P2 for Ferrari to maintain his championship lead. Carlos Sainz completes the podium as well for Ferrari, with Sergio Perez coming home in P4. I really thought he'd have challenged more than he did there. But we've then got George Russell coming home in P5. In P5 for George Russell, maintaining his top 5 finishes for the 5 Grand Prix of this year so far. We've then got Valtteri Bottas coming home in P7. Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon, Alex Albon scored a point in the Williams once again. Then we've got Daniel Ricciardo in P11, Lance Stroll in P12, Yuki Tsunoda, Kevin Magnussen, Nicholas Latifi, and then Mick Schumacher. We had 4 retirements for this Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel very late on in the Grand Prix after contact with Mick Schumacher after the safety car. We've then got Pierre Gasly and Lando Norris, who both had contact leading to the late safety car, and then Guan Yu Zhou, who retired very early on. Blimey, that was a race. Very good for the last 15 laps right after that safety car. A little bit processional for about 60-70% of this race, though. That's for sure. There are a lot of DRS trains. So there's a lot to take away from this for going forward into the next couple of Miami races. But that was a good race. Another victory for Max Verstappen. so far this year, in every race he's finished, he won. And it was Max Verstappen who did get the fastest lap at the end. So 26 points is going to Max Verstappen. But driver of the day, that's the vote that's up for debate now. Driver of the day. So I would say it is between George Russell, Alex Albon, and I think that's it. For me, it's between George Russell and Alex Albon for driver of the day, but I'm gonna have to go for George Russell. Luck was on his side, that's for sure. Luck was definitely on his side. But yeah, I think George Russell gets my driver of the day vote there. Wow, what an end to the Grand Prix, and I'm so glad that that was my first ever race to commentate on for you guys here. I really, really, really hope you enjoyed that. So just one final run through of the order here. One final run through. So we've got Verstappen claiming his second victory in a row and his third victory of 2022, followed by Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz completing the Ferrari podium in P3, Sergio Perez in P4, then George Russell in P5. We then get Lewis Hamilton, a bit of a deflated P6, I would imagine. We've then got Valtteri Bottas in P7 after making a light contact with the wall and losing out to both of the Mercedes. We then get Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso, P8 and P9, and then Alex Albon scoring points in the Williams. We then get Daniel Ricciardo in P11, then we get Lance Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda, Nicholas Latifi, and Mick Schumacher, then Kevin Magnussen, rounding out our final finishing drivers. The drivers that retired were Sebastian Vettel very late on in the Grand Prix, then Pierre Gasly retiring with presumably a hydraulic issue after the contact with Lando Norris. Lando Norris retired after the contact with Pierre Gasly, and then Guan Yu Zhou retired very early on in the race. Wow, what a good commentary session. I very, very much enjoyed that. I hope you guys did too. That was really, really awesome. But that is going to end it for my commentary for this Miami Grand Prix. That was absolutely awesome. I hope I can do a few more of these races or even some qualifying or practice sessions for you guys. Here on the Racing Statistics channel, we do all of these watch-alongs for every single session of the 2022 season. So come and join us whenever those are on. But that is all from me, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and thank you very much.